And those days that you do have the meltdowns, I mean, it's an emotion. Emotions are there for a reason. And it's okay to get mad, sad, scream, yell. I think the goal is to be happy most of the time. That's sort of the goal, I think.
Welcome to Actualize, a podcast focused on the intersection of performance, ambition, and mental health. I'm Rob Pentwala, and I'm joined by my co-host, Kim Foster-Yardley.
Rather than fixate on the wins and successes, our mission is to uncover the whole picture of the human being behind the performance. Join us as we interview top performers across business, sport, and the arts.
Actualize is presented by First Session. Have you ever considered trying therapy or simply just want to level up in your personal or professional life? I started First Session back in 2019 to help Canadians find the right mental health professional for them. Since then, we've connected thousands of Canadians with the right therapist, and I'm really passionate about helping each individual find the right fit in the therapist for them. We spend hours and hours interviewing therapists across Canada, and each one of them has a professional video for you to take a look at while you decide who might be the right fit for you. Check us out at firstsession.com.
Actualize is also presented by the Mental Game Clinic. The Mental Game Clinic was founded by myself, Kim Foster-Yardley. I combined my 20 years of experience as a clinical psychologist with my passion for sports psychology. And I built a team of therapists who specialize in working with high performers, Olympians, and founders. Find us at thementalgame.me.
Today's guest is Jillian Harris. Jillian is a mother, partner, storyteller, and quintessential busy bee who pours her heart and soul into every endeavor. She's the founder of Jillian Harris Design and the Gillie Academy, and the co-founder of the Gillie Box. Jillian is passionate about love, family, philanthropy, fashion, and much more. Topics we covered include what it's like to always be judged on social media, the life of an influencer, being at the helm of a growing business, being a female entrepreneur, and more. I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Jillian Harris. Okay, Jill, we are going to jump right into it. You run a business, but you come across as super personal, almost like whoever's watching on social media's friend. And a couple weeks ago, I was on your Instagram stories trying to prepare for this conversation, and we were just chatting. I kind of hit the jackpot as far as you sharing a lot of what's been going on in your life. And you mentioned that some folks in your audience or who are following you are been calling you greedy. But you also said that like you're running a business now and that, you know, you're supporting your employees. I'm just wondering, like, when people who are sending you these kind of comments that are super direct and rude, how does that, you come across as someone who can just brush stuff off, you know, but how does that actually sit with you?
Well, it's funny that I'm talking with both of you about this, with especially in relation to your background in mental health, because at the early days, any kind of comment would send me off. I would get anxiety. I would fester over it. It would completely side rail my day. And then eventually I just realized like that discomfort was just so debilitating. I just had to figure out a way to get through it, for my own mental health, my family, and also my business. Like I just had to deal with it. And I realized that it comes with the business. When you share your life and your story and you're so vulnerable, you're actually more open to criticism. People feel like they can judge you more. They can have opinions and they can just sort of say whatever they want. And when you have 1.3 million followers, you're going to get all different kinds of opinions. You're going to get people that love you no matter what. You're going to get people that hate you no matter what. And so I've come to realize that you really just can't please everybody, which is very difficult for me because I'm a people pleaser. So that was very difficult. And I've learned to just sort of compartmentalize it. Remember that it's just a job. I try to focus on the good comments. I've tried to have balance. And COVID really, I think, changed me for the better, but it had to get worse before it got better because I went through so much change during COVID, mostly as it relates to like Black Lives Matter and inclusivity and DEI. Like there was so much that I was missing as a brand and as a human that I was unaware of. And so I crashed big time during COVID. Like COVID itself wasn't even the main issue for me. It was everything that came after that. I really had to unpack so much about myself and my business. And I had a lot of guilt. I worked so hard to try to fix myself or fix my business. And eventually I got to a point where I just had to swing that pendulum and come back to this place where I was like, I am human. I am going to screw up, but I also know I have a good heart and I can do this. Like that learning and that growth never ends. But at the same time, I was beating myself up, taking every anti-racism course, I was like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? And so anyhow, to speak to what you're asking, how do I deal with it? Recently, as my team has grown and I've gone through so much criticism and being called out and also screwing up and whatnot, I have had to take a step back and not get offended as much. But part of the way that I've protected myself also, and I think you're going to talk about this later, is I've started filtering myself more. So I'm not on social as much, and when I'm not as filter free, and that in a combination of my business changing, so many meetings and whatnot, I'm just not on Instagram as much. So anyways, how do I take it? When I heard this comment, I was so sad. And I tried to let it go but it was more of a personal attack, not an attack on the business. And sometimes I wonder, am I greedy? Because a lot of what I learned in 2020 and whatnot wasn't just anti-racism, but was capitalism and the social construct of capitalism and the fact that I am, A-type and I am an entrepreneur and I've been trying to make money since I was like 5 years old. Like I literally have pictures of me like trying to sell our whole household, working at and why? How was that in my brain? My parents were entrepreneurs, but somehow it was in me from a young age that I had to make money. And that is a social construct I think a lot of people are trying to wrap their head around right now, of like careers and working. And like right now, the economic divide is really big. And I'm looking around when people are saying these words, like this is just greedy. And just to give context to our listeners is we wanted to try out a new Instagram feature where you could subscribe and our followers would pay like $2 a month or something to subscribe and they would get exclusive content. So anyways, when somebody says the word greedy, I look around and I think like, am I? Like I do have a beautiful house and a farm and I can pay for my groceries and I have a nice car, which is all dented up because I'm a bad driver, but I've got all these things. And so like, do I need to be making more money? Do I really need to be? Like maybe this is greedy. And so I really do fester about it. And I know that I'm not, but at the same time, I think we're all just trying to unpack like, you know, what is rich and how much is enough and why do I have to work so hard? And what am I doing with this money? So it's a super, super long-winded answer. I'm going to take all 90 minutes with this, but I think what a lot of people don't understand is that, like you said, it's not just me. The business that we have created is Jillian Harris, this person, right? And people have this connection with me as a person, and that I am so grateful for. But it is a business, and between the Jillian.Harris Instagram account and website, and Gillie Box and the Gillie Academy, there's 30 employees. There are CFOs, there are account managers, there are project managers, there are marketing managers, procurement, fulfillment, CEOs, like office managers, HR. Like we've got a massive team doing like real people jobs. And I think it's hard for people to understand that when we want to introduce a new business model into the world, it's not just because I want another vacation, which I'm not going to apologize for. I would like another vacation, but it's also because I'm trying to build a business, and that's what businesses do. Businesses are looking for other sources of revenue, of income, how to grow, how to evolve with the times. And so anyways, to answer your question, how do I deal with it? Sometimes okay, but specifically that Instagram story that you saw, and maybe you can share that with your viewers and listeners. I had a breakdown, and I think it was just a lot of things that were piling on top of each other, and that was just sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. And I just had like a full on, I don't know if you're gonna like this, but I called them a mental breakdown. And I honestly thought Justin was gonna call like the mental health services on me. I'm like, I cannot do this anymore. So yeah, I don't always cope well. I'm trying to learn new coping skills, but I think it's important for people that are listening to know that like, it may look all fluffy and wonderful, but it's not always that way. I have mental breakdowns, freak out, crying, like spazzing out too. And I don't know, is that the nature of the business? I don't know. I don't know if it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, I'm so relieved that you've been this honest and open about this, because so often when I work, especially with women, they have, I don't know if it's because I'm a perfectionist that I attract the perfectionists, but I kind of have the people-pleasing perfectionist type women working with me, and it's either 200% or nothing. And so they kind of feel like they're not allowed to feel vulnerable. They're not allowed to have stressed out moments. And in you sharing this, you're just kind of giving us permission as well to have our mini freakouts that we all have, because running a business is a lot of pressure. There's no way around that.
Yeah, and like sometimes we have breakdowns like that. Like, there's a reason why we have like the body needs to let loose. Like the body sometimes just needs to go, like that's just kind of like sometimes you just need to do that. So yeah.
I've been so like curious about the intersection of like being not even like an actor or like someone on TV, but someone who's like built a brand on social media, and I think like is vulnerable on social media, like you definitely are and have been a lot, and how that like you very, I'm like looking on Netflix and like HBO, I'm like, where's the documentary about influencer mental health? Like it
I
is
don't
like
think I don't think it's a healthy career. I wouldn't say like, I think there's a lot of great perks that come from it, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily one, like if you're looking for a career that supports your mental health, I would not go down that career path. However, if you want to travel a lot, and like there's certain things that are great about it and certain things that aren't, but yeah, I would love to see that Netflix documentary as well, because it is really interesting, because you are building a business on you as a person. And the more vulnerable you are, and the more you share about your intimate details of your life, potentially the more successful you can be, which becomes addicting, yet even scarier. It's really strange.
Did you sort of have any guidance or like anyone that you looked up to who was more in the spotlight as you were kind of, just kind of becoming known and starting to like think about like kind of building a business? Like is there, or has this been a lot of intuition and just, you being you the whole time?
So I did a podcast recently, and somebody asked me a similar question, a little bit different, just about like, how did I get to where I am? And I like to say that I live my life sort of like a science experiment. And, like scientists, like they take things and like, oh, that worked or that didn't work. And then all of a sudden, eureka. And then, it's kind of like A/B testing, or write your own story about which path you're going to go down, and sort of what happens. And I've sort of just always done that. Like, let's test this out and see how this works, and let's test this out. And this didn't work and this did work, so I'm going to go down this path. And I've continued to just kind of do that my whole life, as opposed to trying to come up with these big lofty goals of what my life is going to look like. So I didn't really have anybody that I looked up to. I ended up on TV just on a whim. But prior to being on TV, I was fired from a corporate gig for not being professional enough. They loved me as a person. They really cared about me, but they were just like, you just don't fit in here. And that was heartbreaking. But they told me I should be on TV. And I was like, how? Oh, I remember driving away crying, being like, okay, great. I'm just going to go be a movie star. Fan-fucking-tastic, you know? But it turns out they were kind of onto something. And I've talked to them since about it, being like, how did you know? So I feel like there was always something telling me that I wanted to be a storyteller or that I wanted to be on stage, but I didn't know what that really looked like. And then when I came off The Bachelor and whatnot, I love the community aspect of it. Like I loved connecting with people and people asking my outfits and all the stuff. And so that's when I started blogging. And I didn't really know many people that did that except for this one Hispanic girl. Her name is Julia something. Her account is called Sincerely Jules. And she's this tiny, beautiful Hispanic blogger. And she has kept her personal life completely out of it. She just blogs about fashion and travel. I wasn't that smart. So anyways, she kind of inspired me. And somebody else that inspired me was Lauren Conrad at that time. She came off of TV and then she started a blog doing like DIYs and recipe and fashion. And I really loved that. But no coaching or anything. I just really loved connecting with my community and storytelling. And then I loved the high that came with getting a certain amount of likes or followers or reactions. And also people liking me. I mean, like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. When you start doing this business and you have people saying, you're so cute, or where's that outfit from, or I love you, that gives you a sense of adrenaline and rush that is addicting. And so I wanted more followers. I wanted to make them laugh. I wanted them to learn from me. I wanted to continue to build that community. And it wasn't until about 10 years ago that my agent at the time told me I was wasting my time with this industry. I was never going to make money. And I was convinced that there was a way to like monetize this passion of mine. And I started doing like affiliate links and ads and partnerships. And then I was still doing TV. I still had a TV gig, but I wasn't passionate about TV. People know me as this girl on TV, but I was not passionate about it. I was passionate about like my Instagram and Facebook community. And I hired somebody and we basically grew it from a $300 a month business to like, I don't know, $30,000 a month in like a year. I was able to like then hire another person and like to pay her a full-time gig, and I was making great money. And I was like, holy shit, like this is an actual business. This is for real. And that was 10 years ago. So, yeah, so I really didn't have anybody coaching me along the way. And I sort of got into it at the very beginning. So it's been kind of like the wild, wild west, trying to navigate this industry and also try to legitimize it with our following, because our following, they're the ones that wanted this content. They're the one that wanted to see us do more, hire more, grow. But then you get too big and all of a sudden they're upset. They're upset that we have a nice house or that we have a nice vacation, that we're successful now. We're successful from this industry. Now everybody hates the influencers. You hate the influencers, but at the same time, we've grown for the last 10 years supporting the influencers. And why? Because many of them are women, stay-at-home moms. They're hustling. They're working hard. What you see is not necessarily the business. So I find it to be just a very, very interesting industry, and one that I don't always have, pardon my language, the balls for. Like sometimes I'm like, I just don't know if I have this in me anymore. But now I have a team to support. So it's not just about me anymore. Yeah.
That's incredible.
I mean, it sounds like you find passion just in the process of being an entrepreneur, because isn't that entrepreneurship, like trying all these different things, and some of them work and some of them don't, and you just keep going? What keeps you driving forward?
Well, I think Robert, you had a great question somewhere along there, is like it talked about being passionate about being entrepreneur and like, do I enjoy having a team versus the old days? And I will be honest with you, since my mom got sick last year and like COVID kind of weaned itself out, I don't know what it was, if it was my mom, if it was COVID, it was the growth of the business, or just me as a human evolving. But I will say that my passion for the business is changing. And I don't know, also the team is doing such a good job of running the business that it's taken away some of that that excitement for, not excitement, but like the rush of being a new entrepreneur. It's gotten a bit boring. It's corporate. We've got systems, we've got procedures, we've got policies, we've got HR people, we got meetings, everything's organized. And, 10 years ago, I was just, part of my language was flying off the fucking handle trying to figure out how to grow this business. And now it's grown. There's money coming in. It's like, and so I said to Justin the other day, I can't figure out whether I'm just bored and over it, or if things are just running smoothly and I just have to do my job. I'm still trying to figure that out. But I do love business. I do love business and entrepreneurship, but I feel like I'm a startup person. And once the business gets to a certain point, there's certain things that just don't interest me in it anymore. And part of me sometimes feels like I want to get away from being on Instagram and just be a business person. But I think I would miss that connection with the people. So I'm actually going through a big thing right now personally, where I'm trying to identify what I want to do next in my life. Like, I could keep myself busy just with my kids' sports schedules and cooking and grocery shopping and organizing and gardening. I could. And I don't need much. I don't need a new house. I don't need the farm. I have one designer person. It was gifted to me. Like, I don't really need those things. So what do I want to do next, and why? Like, why would I want to keep growing? And I'm trying to figure out what that is.
It sounds really exciting.
I think Kim and I can both relate to the we've had our own discussions about like getting too corporate. I mean, we're tiny, businesses here, but as far as like your, I guess, what you want to do next, like I've been thinking a lot about when you like are building momentum and then you're kind of like finding that motivation again, right? And you have to almost like, okay, what motivated me to get to this point might not actually be the thing that's motivating me anymore. So it's right. I think it's amazing that you have a team that can kind of keep at least the business momentum up while you can pause and reflect.
They're amazing.
And like, do you have you been able to reflect more recently than like in the past? Like, were you always been like stopping and kind of like seeing your direction?
No, I think also recently the team has been really urging me to come up with a plan, which I normally like planning, but the team needs to know what their trajectory is going to be like in the next 5 to 10 years. What should their priorities be? What should they be working on? And up until now, we've just been reacting. We've been reacting and we've been going with the flow and trying new things. We released presets and made a bunch of money on that, and that helped grow our business. And then we had this idea to do the Gillie Box, so we just did that. And and now they want to know, like, what are we working on next? Like, what do we do? And up until now, I haven't really been reflecting. No, and I think a lot has happened. COVID, babies, my mom being sick. Even my relationship with Justin, I've realized like needs more time and attention. I miss socializing so much. Like, COVID sort of ended, but then we filled our schedule with so many other things. I feel like I don't have the time, or I don't know how to get that socialization in anymore. So yeah, I've been thinking a lot more recently, and also the team does such a good job that, frankly, what I said to them about a year ago is I need to get back to the place where I'm in front of my customer and I'm not worrying about HR. I'm not worrying about numbers. I'm not worrying about the bottom line. Like, I've hired you all to figure that out. I need to get back on Instagram, creating, talking, connecting. And we haven't quite got there yet. We're slowly getting there. I've got a little bit more time. But now that I've gotten more time, I find I'm not spending it on Instagram like I told them I was going to. I'm spending it organizing my kids' schedules, picking my kids up, going to get my nails done. I'm spending it living my life. And I'm really enjoying that. And I'm feeling guilty that I told them I was going to be on Instagram, but really I'm actually not doing that. And I keep telling them, if you can get me off of less meetings, I promise I'll do my job. But I'm suspicious that if they get me off of less meetings, that I'll be going to yoga more. I'll be going out for lunch. I'll be doing all the things. So I'm just curious, and I'm just trying not to put too much pressure on myself, because ultimately I have a team of really brilliant people and they love their job and they want to keep working there. They're going to figure out how to make this business work. I'm not worried about that. And if they don't, or they don't want to anymore, then that's up to them. I am okay as a human being. I came from Northern Alberta. I came from a cookie cutter house on a cul-de-sac that probably today would go for a couple $100,000. I was very happy there. I love traveling. Yes, I love my big fancy house, but I could go back to that and I know I could be happy. So I think I've just been reflecting lately, really trying to lean into when I'm in that hustle culture moment, why am I doing that? And how did I get here? Who put me in this place? Am I enjoying it? And if not, then I have to start saying no more. Like, I'm really trying my best to follow my heart that way. And I was driving home from dropping Leo off today at school, and a country music song came on, and it was called, anyways, it was an 80s country song. And it reminded me of the 80s days when my parents would listen to like Dwight Yoakam and Tanya Tucker. And it was sunny out, and I turned up the volume, and I kind of started crying a little bit. Like, I just felt like so happy. And I was like, oh my God, I miss that feeling of just like feeling like, you know, when you're so happy, like you're just like, like you're just happy. You're not stressed. You just feel energized. You want to dance, you want to sing, you want to roll down your windows. And I'll be honest, like, I'm starting to cry a bit, but I haven't felt a lot of that in the last 4 years. So yeah, like, this is like for sure in therapy that everybody's going to get to join in on later. And so it felt really good. And I started thinking about this podcast and work and Justin and everything. I started thinking like, wow, I'm in my mid 40s. And so what, am I going to wait till I'm 50 to enjoy my life? Am I going to wait till I'm 60? Like, when is it that I'm going to wake up in the morning and just feel like I'm in control of my day? I get to decide what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to yoga, go visit my mom, pick up my kids early, make some sourdough, and not have to be on meetings. Well, how long am I going to wait to do that? And many people don't have the luxury of making that decision. A lot of people just have to work forever. And I'm very cognizant of that. And I just don't know. Like, I just think like, well, how much more do I really need? Do I really need to keep on doing this? But I don't know. Anyhow, so I'm struggling. I'm trying to figure out, and if all of the meetings went away today, would I be happy? I don't know. It's scary. I don't know. Could you quit working today, Rob? Do you think and be happy?
That's a good question. I mean, I think about that here and there. Not long enough to actually make an impact.
Yeah.
But
what about you, Kim? Could you?
Yeah.
I would get bored. I think I'd get bored. I think I need, I don't know if it's an addiction, but I get a great deal of satisfaction from challenging myself and then seeing where that takes me.
I think that's the problem. I feel like I don't know if I feel as challenged anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe that's the problem.
In my own therapy, my therapist has talked about this zone of like slowing down is like,
right.
If I was a therapist, but I'm not, I would say to you, Jill, like, your next big thing's just around the corner. You're going to crush it, but you're just like waiting for the right thing.
Right. Right. And that stresses me out. I'm like, well, I don't have time for that thing. I don't have, my schedule doesn't allow for it.
Whereas Jillian, I'm thinking, you know, when we take on challenges and we are like the way you're so authentic in how you are, and then you take on these challenges, we grow and we mature and we change.
That's true.
So what we need change, what drives us changes. And I'm just wondering if this time that you're taking is just a way of attuning, like tapping back into this different version of you that's now in your mid-40s and maybe needs other things because you've grown, because that's what being human is. We don't stay in one place.
Totally.
Especially if we're willing to push ourselves, right?
Totally. Yeah, it's really interesting. And I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but there is a big shift, not like just in culture of just like even the workforce and people working and wondering why they're working. And then sometimes I wonder like, well, how are these people paying their bills? But a lot of people are just going like, I just need less. Like, I just want to live my life. And so I feel like that's really interesting as well. Like, so much has changed in the last 4 years. I'm always so curious to see what is going to happen to our society. Like, what is going to happen to the workforce and to like I always like, it is wild. Like even for us, staffing is just completely changed. Like how people want to work and what people are willing to do and not willing to do versus 5 years ago is so different.
Yeah,
I think because of, sorry, Rob, do you want to
Go
go
ahead.
first?
No, yeah, no. I was just thinking about what you said earlier about like most people aren't lucky enough to even be able to think about like not going to work, you know.
Right.
But I think that from my observation, you know, I can imagine that building your business isn't like you can take an extended period of time off. Like your
Right.
business is like that engagement and that like constant checking in. So it sounds to me like there's been some work done on like not feeling as required or like not feeling as maybe trapped as
Totally.
in the past where you feel like you have to like be on.
Yeah.
And is that must be like, is that the case, or is that must be a huge change? Like,
It is totally wild. And you made me think of something before I get to this about, the other thing that I think that has like, you know, when I say like, well, maybe I just don't even want to work anymore. Like, you know, Justin works, he makes good money. Like he could support the family. That would be fine. Not all moms work, you know, so maybe I don't want to. But one of the other reasons why is when I look at the team, and many of them are moms or moms to be or dads and dads to be, and I look at them and I see how much they love their job, and I think if I were to fold everything today, what would happen to them? And that is part of that legacy that I think somewhere in, is it this podcast or somewhere else that somebody asked me, oh no, I'm doing a Girl Boss podcast later on this month. And one of it was just like, what are you most proud of? And when I think about what I'm most proud of, it always is the team and seeing how they've grown and how they've evolved and how they're buying houses and supporting their families. And we have an RSP contribution. And so I can tell that they're saving up, they're growing. And so that is addicting for me because I want the team down the road to have a family or a grandma or be a grandma and their kids or great grandkids say, yeah, you know, Grandma Shay, she had a good job working with Jillian Harris, and this is why we have this cabin on the water today, or whatever it is, or Aunt Grandma Shay put us through college because of how hard she worked with this. You know, like to me, I keep on thinking about this legacy that can be built not just for me but for our team. But Rob, sorry, what was your question? Your question was
just feeling sort of obligated to be on.
Yeah. Okay. So yes. So I went away to Hawaii for 2 weeks and I mostly disconnected. Like I shared on Instagram to be connected with my community, but I was completely disconnected from the operational side of my business. And that I haven't done for a long time. And what happens when I usually go on vacation and I disconnect is I get anxiety and I get thinking like, is anybody even working? Like, what are people even doing? And I've got 30 some staff and I haven't even heard from them. Like, are they on vacation as well? And so I felt completely disconnected from my business when I got back. And then we had this massive meeting yesterday. And it was a meeting that we'd been preparing for about 5 months. And it was about our 5 to 10 year plan. And I said to Justin, like, I have this meeting tomorrow and I don't even know what the fuck is going on. Like, I don't even know what our 5 to 10 year plan is. And I'm supposed to get up and present. I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, what am I doing? And so Justin was like helping me prepare for this meeting. And I woke up in the morning and I was like, how do I get out of this meeting? Like, I'm the business owner. I'm the owner. I'm the founder. And I'm thinking like, oh, I got a frog in my throat. Like, I should call in sick. Like, I can't go and lead my team. But I was like, okay, I had a green smoothie. I had my lemon water. I was like, okay, I had oatmeal. I set myself up for success. And I got there and they gave me, I don't know where it is. I printed it out somewhere. And they gave me this deck. And it's like this 30-page deck. And they had my parts in it and they had their parts and they had the whole plan of like, this is what our trajectory looks like. This is what we're going to be focusing on. These are our brand pillars. This is how we're going to achieve our goals. This is who's going to do it. And this is how it's going to work. And I was able to sit there and watch the team present And I was able to go, yes, this is what we're doing. And then I was able to amplify and support them and be able to like amp up the team and add that personality to these presentations. And when I left, the sun was shining and we all walked back to our cars. And I just like thanked everybody so much. And I was like, wow, like you guys have worked so hard on this. They've all of that stuff that I hate, the policies and the systems and the meetings, that really led into this beautiful created presentation that actually I probably needed the most, more than anybody. And so, Rob, I have been able to step back and relax, and I don't feel as pressured, and I'm so grateful for it. But I still want to make sure that I'm passionate about it so that I can continue to lead them from a creative angle. So I'm just trying to, like, now they're like, okay, Jill, this is what you wanted. So now do your thing. And so now it's my turn to like, to get on it. And I got to just figure that out.
I mean, I think that what I'm hearing so strongly, I mean, I have a couple of thoughts. The one was related to what was happening with your mom, COVID, becoming a mom. There's a lot that's happened where just even, I think of all of us, not just of you, where we've had a lot of loss. We've had a lot of change. And when those things happen, it kind of forces us to start thinking about what matters to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I just thought like, just like what matters changes.
And it does.
Maybe what matters is becoming more important.
Totally. Totally.
Right?
Yeah. Totally.
And I was thinking about that. And then then Rob asked his question and you were talking about your team, and it sounded to me like what you were saying is that part of what matters to you is that legacy and seeing your team flourish.
Yeah.
Creating something sustainable, and that's actually been part of their fuel now.
Yeah, I think that's important. And then the other thing that I've been really cognizant of, and I think about night and day and throughout the day and whatnot, is my presence and time with the kids. Like, I feel like I've been so frantic up until now. I've been so busy. And Rob, I don't know, you said you have a 16-month-old?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I don't know how you feel about that. You're a dad, so I feel like dads are just better at this, but like I'm not a good player. Like I can't play with my kids. The kids always want me to play. Justin's so good at playing with the kids. And so I'm always thinking like, how are the kids going to remember me? Are they going to remember me as the mom who was always busy and always rushing them, and I was always in the kitchen and I'm always doing things? And is there anything wrong with that? Like my kids have pancakes and eggs every single morning. Our house is clean and tidy. We go on lots of vacations. I'm planning things for them. I'm signing them up for camps. Like I provide for them in the best possible way. But am I really present with them? Am I connecting with them? Like, I don't know. I think that's the other thing I'm really cognizant of is like, from a business perspective, you totally nailed it, Kim. But on a personal level, I'm just trying to figure out like, how do I be more present and more calm and less reactive? How do I be more organized? And I just generally, my brain is just that kind of person who just loves chaos and jam-packed action to begin with. So I'm trying to retrain my brain a bit as well.
Just to bring the like conversation a little bit more back to mental health side of things too. Like it sounds like the fact that you are reflecting a little bit more, it seems like lately, has that been motivated by like a prioritization of like wellness or health, mental health, like, or is that?
Yeah. Well, so when mom got sick last year, you guys are going to love this story. Our viewers I've never told this story publicly, but I'm going to tell it now. And I'm probably going to get judged, but it's kind of a funny story for some people. Probably not funny for like people who are very not liberal. It's going to be, they're going to judge me. But anyways, so mental health, wellness and whatnot is, so first of all, I'm also a daredevil and I'm very stubborn. And so basically a little bit prior to COVID and during COVID, I was like, sort of like, look at me, I can accomplish all these amazing things whilst only drinking wine, coffee, and eating pasta. And I don't have to work out. I hate working out. Like, who works out? It's so stupid. You know, like exercise is for like, I'm not doing that. And I did that somewhat successfully for several years until everything started piling up on top of each other. I was gaining weight. I had bags under my eyes. I was puffy. I was sluggish. I had anxiety. Then my mom got really sick. We had a whole bunch of staffing issues, and I took it really hard on myself. Like, I thought I was this great leader, this great boss, and we were really struggling in the HR department. And I was like, fuck, like, I just feel like I'm losing control. Like, I am losing control of my life. And mom was so sick last year that, not to paint the whole picture, but we had several trips to emergency. I thought we were going to lose my mom last year, and I just could not cope. I could not cope. And I was breaking down with Justin, with the team. I was breaking down with the kids. Like, I was losing it. And we were visiting with some friends, and I won't say who they are because he may not want to be named. And he said, has your mom ever tried psilocybins, which is mushrooms? And I said, well, I'm really curious about them. I think they would be great for my mom, but I just don't know where to look. Like, I don't know where to go. Maybe Kim and Rob, you'd have some advice for me after this. But I really think like going down the mushroom route with my mom, I feel like it would help. Anyhow, I said to my friend, like, if you got any ideas, let me know. And he's like, well, the only ones that I know are like super, super small microdosing. It's probably not what your mom needs, but maybe you would like them. And I'm like, oh, sure, I'll give it a shot. So anyways, I come back from a work trip, and my mother-in-law says, yeah, your friend dropped off these pills for you. And it's like a picture of a little Buddha on a white bottle. Like, it's like totally like, I don't even know where he got these things from. And I tried one, and I didn't really feel much. And I tried one the next day and didn't really feel much. And I was like, oh, whatever. And I tried CBD. I tried all the things to cure my anxiety, except for like actually prioritizing my health. And I also was drinking a lot of wine and drinking whatever I could drink. So anyhow, yeah, I definitely need a few sessions with you, Kim. Anyhow, we were having this big team meeting, and it was 9 a.m. And I had so much anxiety. I was thinking about everything I needed to tell them. And I took 2 pills. And I got in on this call, and I'm on a Zoom call. And Shay, who's our main girl, is like, why is your face so close to the screen? I'm like this. I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm high. And she's like, on a Wednesday morning? I'm like, yeah, no, I'm for sure high. I am 100% high. I took mushrooms this morning. She's like, oh my God, Jillian. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to. I couldn't stop laughing. I was full on tripping out at 9 o'clock in the morning this summer on a Wednesday morning, and I'm like, oh my God. So my mom, who was not well at this time, I had to watch her. Like, my dad had to go to work, and my dad's like, she can't be alone. So my mom comes around the corner, and she's like, hi, Jill. I'm like, hi. She's like, how are you? And I'm like, I'm high. She's like, you're high? And so meanwhile, we had to call my dad. I'm like, Dad, we can't do it today. Like, mom's not doing well. She's depressed. I'm high. My dad was just howling. My dad was like, my poor girls, like, you girls. So we had to call my Justin's brother, who knows a lot about psilocybins. I had to get off the call. And that was like my call. That was like my come to Jesus moment. I was like, I have hit an all-time low. Like, not that taking mushrooms is a bad thing for those of you. I know they can do many wonderful things, but like, I just was like, I was not going about it right. So essentially what happened after that meeting is I was like, okay, I've got to go. The A/B testing we talked about earlier, the scientific experiment. I was like, I can go down one of 2 paths right now. I can quit everything and just be a stay-at-home mom. Justin can support us. I want to focus on my mom. I want to focus on my health. And I'm going to say goodbye to this career. And I'm just going to focus on this. And I lived with that decision for a couple of days. Or I can actually try to do the things that I know I need to do that are actually going to work to get myself out of this hole, and then make a decision when I am on my game. So that was basically in September. And it took me, some people make these changes, and they think that they can make these changes to their life overnight. And I knew that I was going to set myself up for failure. So I gave myself a timeline that basically by January. So I gave myself 4 months to kind of pull it together. I knew I was going to do this. I had to prepare for this. I wanted to wait like Christmas. I love Christmas, like the eggnog and the rum. And we had my friend's wedding over New Year's. And so I was like, okay, after that, it's going to be a whole new me. So throughout the month of January, like, I didn't even recognize myself, and neither did Justin or my team. I was like liver detox. I was like removing certain things from my diet. I started yoga. I went on a wellness cleanse. I started meditating. I was prioritizing my self-care. I started getting into like my facial treatments again. And well, lo and behold, what do you know? I started feeling better. Like I started feeling like I had more energy. I started feeling more positive. I was having less breakdowns. I was able to handle stress better. Like it goes on and on. And so sorry again for the long-winded answer, Rob, but I do believe that like a lot of this reflection and like this podcast even coming at such a perfect time is like all of these things are happening, and it's allowing me to now start thinking about what the next steps are for me. And maybe I'll be able to I don't think I'm quite there yet. But I feel like I'm about a 25% way into this like wellness journey. And I'm really, really loving it. Like, I love that I don't think about wine every night. We're hosting Easter this weekend, and I'm like, maybe I'll have a glass of wine, maybe I won't, where I don't even remember last Easter. Like I put on a beautiful dinner. It was very Instagram worthy. I made homemade buns, but I was drunk. I was drunk. I'm not gonna lie. I was, and it was fun. We had a great time, but it's not healthy. That's not the legacy I want to live in my 40s. Like, it's just not who I imagine myself to be. And so I'm really, really proud and I'm really excited, but I don't think I'm fully there yet. But I have made a lot of changes, and it does work. It does work, but it's hard work. Like waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to yoga, like that's hard. Pat myself on the back.
Parenting oneself is hard work. It
Exactly.
takes so much discipline.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyways, I've never told that story before publicly, and hopefully I don't get judged too hard, but everybody hits their sort of rock bottom, and I totally did this summer.
And I think firstly, thank you for sharing, and certainly from my end, no judgment at all, because I think you're just so honest and authentic around the experience that you give permission to others to be the same. I think I'm repeating myself a bit there. But I was also thinking about how you're really exemplifying for me how when we're distressed, often what we want to do is try and avoid it or numb it out.
Yeah.
But actually that anxiety or that stress or that breakdown, what did you call it? An
mentee bee.
Mentee bee.
Mentee bee.
That mentee bee might actually be our inner wisdom trying to help us to connect back to ourselves.
Right.
Totally. And trying to like show us our direction. And if we try listening, most of us know what we need to do. We don't actually need someone else to tell us.
Totally. Well, Justin and I have a therapist, and before every meeting, I want to cancel because I'm like, I already know what he's going to say. I already know the answers. Like we used to, like when I'm like, what's wrong with me? How do I change this? I know how to change the things. It's just a matter of doing it. That's the hardest part.
And what you're doing by kind of giving yourself some grace, by not doing everything at once, you're recognizing that you're human and we can't conquer a mountain in a month.
Totally.
Right? Totally.
Yeah.
That's what stands out to me, is that you gave yourself those 4 months. Like, that is amazing. And I know I can relate to being not sober on different substances, and probably psilocybin as well. And what that's like, not on a.
I like calling it psilocybin because it sounds much more fancy.
Yeah, it's the next frontier in terms of like mental health.
Totally.
Applied.
Totally.
I'm getting interested in it, but I think it's just the self kind of patience that you're showing is just that's very inspirational. It's amazing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that because I'm not a patient person. So that's been really hard for me to go like, okay, this is going to take time. But I have to take my own advice too, because with my mom being sick, my mom was so sick, and I'm trying to give her advice and I'm trying to support her, but yet I'm not taking my own advice. I was like, okay, I know the answers to this. And I think it's when you really desperately want it to be successful. If you desperately want it to be successful, then you really have to do the work. And it is all work. Like, I understand why there are a lot of humans on the planet that are struggling or overweight or unhealthy, underweight, struggling with their mental health and whatnot. First of all, it's a very interesting time to be alive, and in terms of like economics and mental health and the workforce and just everything that's been going on, social media, but also it is easier to let ourselves go and to just go like, you know how I think about A&W every day? I love A&W. I actually love McDonald's too. I love it all. Pizza. I love wine. Ooh, tequila. Oh, I could do it all. But I can see why it's easy to just go down the slippery slope. Because it's easy to do it. It's harder. Like, this is disgusting. This is disgusting. It's romaine lettuce, celery, cucumber, kale, broccoli, and parsley. It tastes like a dirty fart, but I am 3/4 of the way done, and I hopefully will feel great tomorrow morning.
I think that's the thing. When we do those things that are hard, they end up showing such good returns.
Right.
But it's a long game.
Yeah. Have you guys
It's
heard
certainly a long game.
Catherine Roscoe Barr? I did this retreat with her. She's incredible. If you've ever chatted with her, she's great. But she taught us about this thing, and it's called, oh God, I hope I can remember. It's these 4 different sort of disciplines, and it's constructive pain, destructive pain, constructive pleasure, and deconstructive pleasure. And so these things that we do, that we analyze, like, how is this harming my life, or how is this like contributing to my wellness? And so like the dirty fart juice, it's like, I call this call this constructive pain. It's like, it's gross, but it's going to make me feel good. And so I always actually started teaching the kids about this, because, you know, they love the candy first thing in the morning, their iPads. And we just talk about like, why do you like this? And how does this contribute to your wellness and your well-being? But I try to look at things differently now and try to ask myself, like, I really enjoy this. I love this. But is it also good for me? Like, actually, I love hot yoga. I actually love hot yoga. I crave it. And I didn't do it for 10 years. And now that I'm back at it again, I'm like, how did I let this out of my life? So yeah. Some of those things are hard. Go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
I'm on the hot yoga train as well. My wife and I, it's the best. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
I just wanted to add to there though, that I started Kim's a psychologist, and I started a company connecting people with therapists. Right. So like I've had my own kind of rock bottom or near rock bottom experiences, but also it's like, it goes back generations in my family. And I think what's really a key unlock is when I hear people like you kind of just alluded to, like, the work is never done.
Yeah.
And I think like it's tempting for, I'm a millennial, but it's tempting for, like, you know, millennial to like look at the boomer population and be like, oh, like the boomers are like, they've done their work, they've gone to therapy before, and now they're done. And, you know, it's like, that's exactly. I don't know if that's how it works. And
it's funny you say that, because I talk to my parents a lot about, like, now my dad's retiring and they're bored, and my mom's still not doing well, and I can see them going kind of stir crazy, and I'm like talking to them about like therapy and going to yoga, and like, what are they going to do with themselves? And my dad actually said something similar. He's like, well, I've done all these things. Like, I just want to enjoy, but I'm like, Dad, I don't think it works like that. Like, I think you got to keep on discovering yourself. You got to keep on thinking about these things. You have to keep on growing. My dad's such like an old school guy. He's like, I don't know about that shit. But, you know, it is really interesting, because when you stop that work, you stop challenging yourself, you stop growing. And I think that's a kind of a scary place to be.
Yeah, I think as an entrepreneur too, like, you're always looking for the next creative output. Totally. And I think it's really hard. I know I struggle with it too. It's like, I mean, I love working on myself. I'm probably obsessed with it. And I'm like taking a break from therapy right now, but I'm sure I'll be there again soon. But as far as actually, like, I'm like sitting and enjoying the ride, like you said, could you not work? And I'm like, well, actually I have been kind of thinking about that, because like, what is the point? If you can't just like relax for a second, or at least like create some sort of joy from what you've worked on. And I've like, you know, I never feel like my business is doing well enough or good enough. And you know, people ask me how it is, and I'm like, oh, that's okay. Like, it could be better. And that's just kind of my nature. But I think it's like other people help me realize, like, hey, like, this is great. You should be proud of yourself. And I think that's so important, but also for your own personal growth and work and therapy, or not therapy, or just trying to be kind to yourself and realizing that that's super important.
Yeah. I always wonder if there's like something wrong with me, because, well, there's something wrong with all of us, I'm sure, but there's some days where I'm like, like today, I'm so proud of our team. Like, holy smokes, like our business is doing so well. And I mean, yes, there's certain things like that I'm like, how come our overhead's too high, or do we have too much staff? There's certain things that I'm always analyzing. But then there's days where I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, I'm folding the towel. This industry sucks. Like, I'm done with this. Like, I just want to go on my farm and grow potatoes and, teach my kids how to paint. And, there's days, and I always ask my team, I'm like, am I the most inconsistent person ever? Like, there are some days where I'm like, look at the bottom line, and how did this take us so long? Let's get this going, and we need to be more productive. And then there's days where I'm like, everybody gets a Friday off this summer. Just enjoy yourselves. Don't worry about work. And they're like, who is, like, I literally have a dual personality. I think it's very confusing for them, but it keeps things interesting, at least.
It sounds like a classic entrepreneur, and I love that you were forced into entrepreneurship by getting fired. I have a similar story.
Totally. Yeah, and I talk about it often. So it was Cactus Club. I worked for Cactus Club. I was a designer for them. And have you guys ever heard of Richard Jaffray? So Richard Jaffray is like one of the founders of Cactus Club. He's founded it with a guy named Scott Morrison, who now owns Browns. Of course, now the Fullers own Earls. They own everything. But they're like such visionaries as it relates to like entrepreneurship. Like, it's totally wild. But yeah, he's hopefully never listens to us, but he kind of reminds me of Mr. Burns. Like, he's kind of skinny and he kind of sit behind his desk, whatever. And I remember when he fired me for that. And I just remember being so devastated. And he's like, I know you're devastated, but I'm telling you, you're going to do great things. Like, there's something about you that I feel like I can't keep you here. And I remember being so pissed off at him. Like, you don't get to decide what I'm going to do with my life. I will decide. I want to work in this stingy office with my face to a screen doing CAD drawings. Like, that's what I wanted to do. And had I known that him letting me go would have led to all of these things, that would have been the best day of my life. But that's why, like, when we let our staff go or they quit, or I see people that are going through, these certain rock bottoms in their life, I'm just like, you never know what can change. You never know. And that is one thing I would say my biggest takeaway to anybody when they ask about my trajectory and whatnot is just always be open to the possibilities. That is one good thing I can say about myself, is I'm a very optimistic person. And I always think that something good is going to happen. And my husband, Justin, is always like, well, of course it'll happen for you. Like, he'll be like negative about something. And I'll be like, oh no, we'll find a parking spot, or, oh no. And he's like, well, of course you will. I'm like, I will, because I do believe it's going to happen. And so just be open to the possibilities, and just do believe that you deserve great things and you're meant for great things, and continue to tell yourself that, because when you do that, you will put up with less shit from the world and from yourself. And you will then be able to self-identify when something isn't working for you, because you already decided that you're meant for these great things. So that's like I don't have a lot of advice because I've got my own issues to deal with, but that is the one thing that I'm always like, okay, I know that the possibilities are possible. It's possible to do all these great things. So, or that they can happen to you. Sometimes there is luck involved.
Wow, that's incredibly inspiring. Thank you. Wow. I feel like you're talking to yourself.
Nugget for the day.
You're like talking to yourself.
Yeah.
You might take your own advice. I'm just like, Jillian, be open to possibility.
I don't need to write it on the mirror.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Because I think, to your point about the ups and downs, like we're responding to what's happening in the world, but we're also responding to how we feel on that day, right?
Totally.
Like the state we wake up in that morning.
Totally.
And it's so amazing how that can just shift everything and how we see the world.
You must love, like, I actually am, especially seeing what my mom has gone through over the years. This industry is so interesting, and it's one that I've been very passionate about, especially like we could have a whole other conversation about like the healthcare system and like what you do, Rob. I have this idea for mental health patients and a need that I've been seeing. And maybe this is like a a thing you can just take this, and if you make a couple million, just let me know, take me out for dinner, you and your wife and Justin, we can go on a nice little fancy trip or something. But essentially it's like a project manager for that person, because it's not just a therapist that they need. Like what my mom needs is, my mom needs a psychologist, a therapist, possibly a neurologist, a doctor, maybe a naturopath, maybe like a psilocybin doctor, maybe like there's all these different people that I think need to assess her. They need to assess her. They need to do tests. Like I want my mom, maybe my mom has a heavy metal buildup. Maybe she's got actual brain damage. Maybe there's something that her psychiatrist has not identified, that reason why she can't get better. But because the mental health practitioners don't really work with each other, it's so lonely. A therapist only works with therapists. It's not collaborative. How do you solve this problem? What if my mom's got a few different problems that are contributing to her mental health issues? And so I did find a private practice that could help us, but it's 65 grand a week. It's going to cost us $250,000 I'd sell the farm. I would do it. I'd pay for it, but there's no guarantees. And so I always think that this industry is really so interesting. And what you were saying, Kim, what made me think about like how you wake up every day. I even have an obsession, because, I did home design before, about how you wake up and how your space, your health, your clothes, everything contributes to your mental health. The color you paint your walls, how organized your bedroom is. Do you sleep with your bedroom blinds open? Is the sun waking you up? There's so much that can contribute to it. Like maybe that will be what I do when I'm done with Instagram. Maybe I'll go back to school and take psychiatry or mental health or something like that, because I think it's so interesting.
We can roll together.
What you're saying,
I'll be in that program with you.
Totally. Okay, let's do it.
What you're saying is so true, because so for context, I've been a psychologist for 20 years.
Right.
Wow. So I've seen everything. Yes. And I've worked in South Africa, where I'm from, and I've worked in Canada, in Ontario, in Toronto. And it's often the small decisions we make every day. And like I know clients come to me and they're so desperate and they're in so much pain, and they're like, can you just give me that one thing that will change everything?
Right.
And it's really heartbreaking for me to have to say this, but it's more like you're chipping away. It's more like you're peeling an onion. It's more like you're changing this piece and then that piece, and then this helps, and then there's this setback, but then you try this. And you're absolutely right. It's from so many different sides of us.
Yeah.
Our bodies, our minds, our health, our physical health, who we surround ourselves with.
Totally. It must be so overwhelming for so many patients. And I know my mom specifically, because my mom's just waiting for her pills to just like make her feel 100%. And I'm like, they can probably get you to a certain point, but then at that certain point, it's going to be up to you to do all of these different things. And it's not just going to be one thing. And for her, she's already overwhelmed. So she's like, well, frick, like you're telling me I got to eat healthy, and I got to do yoga, and I got to wash my hair, and I have to exercise, and I got to go to painting class. Like I got to do all these things. And then what if I can't do all these? It's so overwhelming. I mean, that's what I'm saying. There needs to be like a project manager. That'd be very expensive, but I'd be willing to pay extra on my taxes. This tax man can listen to me right now. I would literally pay whatever if we could have that kind of service, because I think the mental health situation is only going to get worse.
It sounds a little bit like from what I've learned in the US, they have what they call functional medicine. And I don't know if they have that in Canada even, but functional medicine also sounds very expensive, but like they will give you a test to see if you have mercury poisoning or Lyme disease, or, you know, but it's like, it's super, super thorough. But then I just want to add too, for like the younger population now, there's all this like data and, you know, the health podcasts, and like there's so much information available, but then there's all these like wearables that you can track your sleep, and you can track your glucose, and you can, like, if you have the means to do so. But I think there's so much more anxiety even associated with tracking all these things, because then you're like, if you don't have a good sleep, or like you have a sugar spike after eating like, you know, an ice cream, and then you're just sent on a
you almost manifest that you're in a bad mood that day.
Totally.
Yeah. Totally. Dude, I will tell you, I bought myself a new Apple Watch because Justin is like tracking his rings, right? And I'm like, well, I want to do this with you, right? And so like I'm putting the kids to bed, and I'm like, oh fuck, I'm like standing at the end of the kids' beds, and I'm like trying to like close my rings at the end of the day, but then when I don't close my rings, I'm pissed off at myself. Like I'm feeling disappointed in myself because I didn't close my rings. I'm like, oh God, I actually don't have it on today because I'm like, I knew I was sitting in meetings all day today, and I knew it would be telling me to stand, it'd be telling me I'm not moving enough, and I'm just like, hey, you know what, it can shut up today. Like I already know I'm not going to close my rings today, okay? But yeah,
I'm avoiding that.
Yeah.
I do not have an Apple Watch.
Yeah, don't do it.
Because I know that's exactly what
Don't
will
do
happen
it.
to me.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't need another thing telling me
Yeah.
My wife.
what I should be doing.
Yeah.
My wife thinks it'll be bad for my ADHD.
Yeah. That's another thing that I wonder is that if I have ADHD, and I've had so many people tell me I do, and it's like I'm avoiding going down that path to find out if I am. But I'm thinking, well, maybe if I am, maybe there's something that could help me, and I can. But I'm like, I like myself the way I am. I like that I'm a disaster. I'm like that I'm all over the place. But what could I accomplish? Like, you just never know. Like, do things get better after you're diagnosed and you get medication, or do you? I don't know.
I'm 33 and got diagnosed when I was 32. So I got diagnosed last year in BC.
And so
my therapist recommended it, and I haven't chosen to do any medication yet, but I do have that option. But I think a lot of the things that you're doing, and again, I'm not a therapist, but it's stuff like hot yoga. Like I love hot yoga.
Yeah,
it calms me down.
So you're not taking any medication?
I'm not, no. But I know that there's some folks that choose maybe to have the medication for, like, there's like podcasts dedicated to this stuff that I've gone down the road. But, you know, some people, if they have to do taxes or like bookkeeping or whatever, they'll like take one of their medication like for the day, and then they just like they get it done. But I mean, I'm not definitely not giving advice or anything, but people do that. And yeah, I think for me, it's like the question of like the diagnosis, like there's a kind of a family history of, I think, being afraid of diagnoses in my family, and ADHD wasn't a big deal to me because I reflected a lot on like diagnosis and, you know, even things like bipolar and things like that have come up in my family. But yeah, I think as long as you're like at the point where you can accept that like a diagnosis isn't going to completely rock you, and you can kind of use it just to learn more about how might you live better just by that knowledge.
But do you think that people who have ADHD, like I haven't done a whole lot of work on it, but it seems to me that there's a connection between people with ADHD and also entrepreneurs and overachievers and A-typers. So like part of the time I'm like, well, yeah, if I didn't have ADHD, like I don't know if I do or not, but I just have the suspicion that I do. Like would I have been able to like start all these businesses and juggle all these things and have these ideas and do these things? I mean, oftentimes we're trying to like take all these pills to like normalize us, but like that's not interesting either. Like, isn't that what makes the world go round? Is we're all just kind of different, and some of us are a little bit loopier than others, and that's what makes things interesting. I don't know.
I agree.
I mean, there is that study a couple of years ago that looked at founders and kind of the incidence of mental health issues, and it was something like 35%, if I remember correctly.
Interesting.
Presented with some kind of early trauma or had some kind of diagnosis of some kind. And there was something in that the writers were talking about around, or researchers rather, around how early childhood trauma and kind of hardships, not necessarily full traumas, not the big T's, and I could go into the big T's and the small T's, but basically just these hardships, they help us to develop, not that I would wish trauma on anybody, but they do help us to develop grit and resilience and the ability to kind of be flexible and sometimes have too high a pain tolerance, probably, but also kind of be hungry for more.
Yeah.
And that thing ends up fueling this entrepreneurial process. So that was pretty interesting.
Rob, you said that do you have mental health history in your family as well?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. I mean, this isn't your interview, but I feel like I am curious because
Please.
I had such an interesting childhood, and that my parents were incredible parents. They did such a good job raising me, but like there was alcohol abuse. My mom had a lot of issues with mental health. They separated, they got back together. I lived with my aunt, I lived with my dad, like and people were like always like, "Oh, poor Jillian, poor Jillian." And I would never want my kids to go through that, but whenever my parents feel guilty, like today that my parents are together and everything is great aside from my mom's illness, but they're always like, "Oh, we feel so bad," and I'm like, "Oh, honestly, trust me, whatever you did, I turned out great. Like, look, guys, I'm doing great. Like, yeah, maybe not everything I'm doing is good for my mental health, but I'm happy and I'm hopefully changing some lives and producing aspirational content and traveling." I'm like, "Do you think that I turned out bad? Like, are you sorry? Do you think I turned out bad?" So anyways, I would never want my kids to go through what I went through, but sometimes I worry that what adversities will they go through, any adversities that will make them stronger? And what happens if you have no adversities? Then what happens? Do you still turn out okay? Or do you become just like a spoiled soft brat? I don't know.
I thought about
Well,
the same
apparently
thing.
there's like a middle ground.
Yeah.
There's a study that was done at the University of Buffalo, like in the 2000s, and they talk about how it was quite controversial because he was like, you need like a certain number of hardships. And they were talking about like the people who were the most happy and they almost had like an average of 8 or something, which is like, I don't know, this is a random number where he interviewed, I think, 20,000 people in North America. So there was something around how adversity
Does make you happier.
and exposure to stress actually, and then the people who were on the other sides of the curve who had a lot of hardship or had none at all were the most unhappy.
How
With
messed
the
up is
least
that?
life satisfaction.
But it gets in a
Interesting.
way, sometimes you need to go through, like, you need shit to hit the fan so many times so that when things are normal, you're so happy because things are just normal. Like, you're just happy to be existing because shit's not hitting the fan. So maybe that's the psychology behind that.
But I actually think it's because how do we know that we're resilient? How do we know that we're confident if we don't overcome difficult things?
Right.
You know, like, I know I'm kind of being a downer, but like, you know, it's just that stretching of ourselves and then seeing, hey, I could actually handle that. Wow. So suddenly we have confidence in ourselves to be able to handle things that we didn't think we could before.
Totally.
I think a lot of, like, as far as parenting goes, like, I think people have a tendency to sort of overcompensate for what they might have missed out on, right, as a parent. And I know that, like, I think the most prevalent mental health occurrence in my family that I know about is like my mom's parents. Dad was a war veteran and had like pretty severe PTSD. There was like attempted suicide. My mom was like 10 years old. And then her mother was suffered from alcoholism. And so my mom like realized at one point that she was like from this family that, you know, was dysfunctional. And then like, it was like her mission to not make that happen again. And so it was like, it kind of like almost overextended on that mission. And I think like to your point about not having adversity, I think like even just seeing like my older nieces and nephews grow up, maybe they're around your children's age. I just think like it doesn't matter what neighborhood you grow up in. And I know like I've heard a lot of therapists tell me like, don't compare traumas. Like your experience is your experience. Like anyone going to grade school is going to be up against hard times, whether they are wearing the nicest clothes and getting dropped off in the nicest car or not. Right. And I think like these stories about youth, you know, suicide and things like that now, which are terrible, but you know, just bullying can cause it.
Totally.
And like online bullying and just always being on with them, like on their devices and like all sorts of this stuff. So I think there's enough adversity around that
right.
Teaching the good, modeling the good coping skills.
I don't have to worry about how I'm going to traumatize my children in order to make them better human beings. Okay.
One less thing.
One less thing to worry about. Great.
How have you? I wanted to ask you a little bit about being a mother too before we run out of time. You know, how did that initially kind of change your outlook on things? And you know, where does that fall in kind of meaning and importance to you being a mother?
It's really interesting because up until now, our kids were just babies, right? They're babies, they're toddlers, they're cute. You get to decide what happens with their day. You get to make decisions for them. And so I found it was just really easy. Like it was really easy to my friend Michelle and Kenny, which by the way, Kenny is the one that gave me the mushrooms. So I'm just going to call him out right now. But anyways, Michelle and Kenny, they're such good friends of ours, amazing humans. Michelle was saying to me, like, just wait until they're older. Like, they're going to need you more. I'm like, how is that possible? Like, I'm literally breastfeeding every 3 hours. Like, how can this human need me more? But I realize it now because they're actually little human beings that require conversations, and they have their own opinions, and they have feedback that happens throughout the day, and you need to be present for it. And you need to be thinking about how you're going to react to that and how that's going to affect them. And both our kids are just incredible kids, but I would say I worry about Leo's confidence, which is really shocking for me because I feel like I'm a very confident person, but I worry about that with him. He's a little bit shorter and he's a little bit smaller, and there's something in him that I can tell he needs help with his confidence. And Annie doesn't need help with her confidence, but she is very emotional, which is totally fine. But it is like a definite roller coaster around here. I'm very stubborn. So I'm always thinking about like, how can I best support my children so that I can raise these humans to be well-rounded and to have confidence and to love themselves and to love others and to be kind. And so being a mom, it takes up so much more mental space than I even said in this mom group today. I'm like, motherhood did not prepare me for this, like signing them up for baseball and who's on their team and are they going to enjoy it? And then what camps are they going to go to? And Leo's telling me at class he's getting bullied, but is he actually getting bullied or is he just saying that? But if he's just saying that, that means something too. Like, why is he saying that? And you're always just wondering, like, how can I want to give these kids just like the best upbringing and be the best mom. And last night, evenings are not good for me. I'm a good morning parent. Justin's a good nighttime parent, which was great. We balance each other really well. But I'm always tell myself about this time of day, like, remember, you're going to be cranky tonight. Like, I'm always so irritable at night. My work is very, I'm always on. I'm always like communicating, creating, telling stories. And so by the time nighttime comes around, I don't want to talk to my husband or kids. Like, I just want everybody to shut up, eat their dinner, and get the hell to bed. And all they want to do is talk to me. I'm like, oh. So when Justin goes to golf, I'm like, yes. Like, oh, I can just put on a TV and just zone out, which is also not healthy. And hopefully he doesn't listen to this whole podcast. I know he'll get bored of listening to my voice after 15 minutes. But anyways, last night, my mom brought over their favorite yogurt, and they started playing with the yogurt and like splattering it on each other and whatnot. And I was like, no. Come on, you guys, don't be silly. Let's get in the bathtub. And I was telling them, stop that. Don't do that. That's going to get in her hair. Like, and I knew they were going in the bathtub and like, what's the big deal? It's just yogurt. But I was very irritable. I was very cranky, and I got them in the bathtub, and I decided in my head that it was one of those nights I had to give them melatonin. I was like, I can't even do bedtime tonight. I'm going to let the melatonin do the job. Anyhow, I get them to sleep, and I'm lying in bed, and what's the first freaking Instagram post that I pull up on my phone is this parenting post that says, your kids are only young once. Literally, let them smear yogurt on themselves. I was like, are you attacking me? Let them be kids. And I'm like looking at my poor kids that are zonked out from melatonin. And I literally had to like wake them up to be like, I'm sorry about the yogurt. Like, you guys can spread yogurt on your faces tomorrow. But yeah, I feel guilt. Like I feel guilt. And I think it's a normal parent thing, but you just want to be the best parent. And sometimes you're just like, was I too grouchy? Did I give them enough time and attention? Was I too worried about the house being clean? I don't know. So yeah, it's parenting is hard. It's a trip, man.
No doubt. Yeah.
Justin just walked in. I'm on a podcast right now with a company called First Session. This guy, Rob, who you can come meet, he created it, and it's an online platform that connects patients with therapists.
So smart.
Brilliant, right? Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Justin. Maybe I know you got to wrap up here, but I know Kim you wrote down a question just about like female-led businesses. Do you want to end with that, Kim?
I mean, Yeah, thanks, Rob, for the prompt. But I feel like Jillian's been answering me all along. And even just what you said now about being a mom, the question I had written down was really for female business owners. And if you have any, like, from that perspective, I think just even speaking as a mom, like what that's been like for you. You're very candid about that. And I'm just wondering, like, what kinds of things do you do to support yourself around that? What is the challenges and some of the opportunities you found, the possibilities you have found?
Totally. I mean, it's so interesting because when I often say it wasn't supposed to be like this, right? It wasn't like moms were supposed to raise their children at home, but like really, what was it supposed to be like? Like the world has evolved, and would I have been happy living in the 50s being a stay-at-home mom? Like, would that have satisfied me? Sometimes I think I like it. I would get dressed up in my cute little dress and I would bake all day and I would have parties and we'd probably end up drinking vodka at 2:00 in the afternoon. Like, who knows what would happen? But anyhow, but I mean, I think it's just interesting all around being a parent and being a business owner for sure. I see, Justin is such a good dad and he's so hands-on. I'm a different parent in that I'm the one that is like organizing this and organizing that. And Justin he doesn't feel like that. He doesn't do it because it probably doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to happen. Like he just goes with the flow and things just work out and that's sufficient. Like what I do, he thinks is just like, it's unnecessary. The amount of planning that I do. I think it is necessary. Anyhow, I think it's a really interesting time because most parents have to work 2 jobs. So that is something to recognize. And a lot of women have just, even if they don't have to work 2 jobs, have evolved and that they realize they're not satisfied with just being a stay-at-home mom. Some women want to start their own business. But ultimately, even when you want to start your own business, even if you don't have to, the responsibilities of being a parent and a partner and taking care of a house are still there. And so I'm very, very lucky in that we have a nanny who also does the house. And she's incredible, absolutely incredible. And I even just said today before this call, I said, Annie, to my daughter, what would we do without Auntie Sissa? What would you be doing right now? Like we'd all be laying in the corner in a fetal position. Like we could not live without her. She is literally like our saving grace. But even with her, it is a challenge because you are in meetings trying to sign your kids up for camp. You're thinking about what's for dinner. I'm thinking about Leo's confidence. I'm thinking about him today. He's got a field trip and how's that going to work? And you're also thinking about your staff, and I'm thinking about dinner and hosting Easter. And I also really want to get to yoga, and when's that going to happen? And why do I have to drink this juice? And it's all these different things that sort of layer on top of themselves. And sometimes I think it's healthy for your brain. It keeps your brain like active and excited. And sometimes it does lead to burnout. And I always tell our alumni on Gillie Academy. So I started this company called Gillie Academy, and it's an online platform that helps teach people, small businesses, entrepreneurs, creators. But I always tell them, I always ask, how do I do it all? And the answer is I don't do it all. And when I do try to do it all, it comes at a cost. Something always falls off the wagon or suffers because of it, or I have a mentee B. But you just have to continually be interviewing yourself and checking in with yourself and saying like, how does this feel good and what doesn't feel good and what can I do differently if you have the opportunity. I mean, there are some parents that just have no choice. They have to run their household. They have multiple kids, sometimes single moms, single dads, and they have a business, and you just have to do it. And that is when I think you have to work the hardest on yourself, on your green juice and your yoga and your sleep and the no alcohol. Like you've got to make sure that your brain, your body can handle that because you are working in a high performance mode. And yeah, it's a really interesting time, but I'm grateful for it all. Like there are some days where I feel burnt out and I wished it was this way or that way, but ultimately I really don't have anything to complain about. Except for this juice. That's it.
Constructive pain.
Constructive pain. Yeah. Yeah. But you really do have to be analyzing yourself. And those days that you do have the meltdowns, I mean, it's an emotion. Emotions are there for a reason. And I always tell the kids, like, it's okay to get mad, sad, scream, yell, even swear or whatever. Like, as long as you're not hurting other people, you've got those emotions in you for a reason. There's a reason why anger exists. It's okay to be angry, but then checking in with those emotions and seeing like, okay, is it okay to be angry all the time? Am I angry all the time? Am I sad all the time? Like, what's going on here? So I think the goal is to be happy most of the time. That's sort of the goal, I think.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I absolutely
Jillian.
love it.
Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic place to end it here. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Jill. Yeah.
Oh.
We're going to be following along, and thanks for sharing all your wisdom and lessons here.
This was really fun, and I feel like I got a free 90-minute therapy session that we're also
Amazing.
going to be able to share with the world. So I'm super, super excited about that. I was super impressed when I first heard about first session, but I haven't dug really deep into it, and I'm really excited to look into it more. Even for my mom, I think it would be great, even for myself. So congratulations on what you've built as well, Rob and Kim, and it's been such a pleasure chatting with both of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Actualize podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode, as well as all other episodes, at firstsession.com/podcast. If you like this podcast, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.